You feel
So
like
yeah.
it's difficult. It sounds like it's an interesting system. Do you feel like it's accessible for new hunters to get in? Was it difficult? It sounds like you started hunting as an adult. Was it a difficult process to move into in terms of having connections with people in rural places so that you could hunt on their land, or getting a firearm, learning the actual skills involved and the practices?
Yeah, I think the way I started hunting essentially was I just wanted to live a slightly more natural, kind of sustainable lifestyle, and I was like, okay, well, I want to be able to. I didn't want to eat factory farm meat. I wanted to eat something that was better, probably better for me and more natural. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna start hunting. And here in Japan, when you want to get that firearm, the first thing you need to do is you got to go down to the police station, and you basically sit down for an interview, and they ask you, why do you want this firearm? And I was like, well, I'd like to get a firearm so I can hunt. And they're like, does anyone in your family hunt? Does your father hunt? Does your uncles hunt? And I'm like, no one hunts, and half my family's not even in Japan. And they looked at me with these big shocked faces, and yeah, there were hurdles to clear.
Mm-hmm.
But once they know, basically, they do a whole background check on you. So if I run through the process, you go to the police station, they do that initial interview, and if nothing puts them off, then they'll start you on the process. Then you go to a beginner's class, and then they give you a test. If you pass that test, everything starts from there. They do a full background check on you, everywhere you've worked for the past 10 years.
Uh,
They'll check all your family members who live with you. They'll come and interview your neighbors, your family, all these things. It's quite extensive what they do. And you also can't have a criminal record of any kind. And if anything along that process, if they don't think you should have a firearm, the committee will just decide that you shouldn't have it, and that's that. And you can't complain about it really. And then once you've gone through that process, then there's shooting and all these things. You got to take courses and whatnot, and then it's just the maintenance of the firearm from there. But it is a very difficult process to have a firearm, and then
hey, bud, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
oh yeah, yeah. I noticed you were gone, so I was just having a break myself.
Nice. What are you drinking? Some juice?
Yeah, I figured I should. It doesn't feel right that I'm able to drink. It's like 9 p.m., but for you, it's a bit early to be getting on the drink, right?
I think it would be problematic if I was drinking at this time. Sorry, man. So,
Yeah.
do you remember where you were at? Let's see. Is it still
Yeah.
still recording?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So we were just talking about firearm ownership and the difficulties of getting a firearm, and I stopped kind of halfway through that, but it is quite difficult to get that firearm, and like I said, you can't have any sort of like a criminal record or anything like that. And then along the same line, you also have to then get a hunting permit as well, which is regulated by the prefectural governments here. I guess the states in the U.S. would be the equivalent of a prefecture in Japan. And then you get your hunting license for. There's multiple licenses. We've got trapping licenses. We've got a firearms license, and then we've got a separate firearms license for air rifles as well.
Mm.
One thing that's a bit different that I have to explain a lot is that in Japan we're not allowed to bow hunt, so there's no bow hunting or crossbow hunting here in Japan. It's not allowed.
Well, and what's the rationale behind that?
So again, this is part of I guess the way that laws were formed in Japan. The firearms law that we're actually under and we're regulated under harks back to the samurai period when they wanted to demilitarize the samurai. So they took away their bows, their katanas, those swords that they've got, and they took away their firearms and they regulated them all. So essentially, with that, we kind of lost the ability to use bows for hunting as well. And then
Mm.
it was never reinstated, whereas the ability to hunt with firearms was understood to be necessary for rural communities. So we just don't have bow hunting or crossbow hunting because it's regulated by the samurai laws, essentially.
So there's no element to the ethics of it. It's sort of purely historical and legalistic. Like from what I understand, in Australia, they've got there's pushback against using archery equipment because people feel that it's cruel or inhumane. But that's not the case in Japan.
No, as far as the legal standing of it, it's because of the original firearms and weapons laws, and we just never reinstated any form of bow or crossbow hunting.